Find her. Adrian Cole said it so quietly that the room became even quieter. 20 men stood around the long conference table, waiting for the next order, but no one dared ask who she was. Adrian stared through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below, where Manhattan glittered beneath a cold November rain. He owned buildings in this city, restaurants, clubs, shipping companies. He knew who owed whom money, who was lying, who was planning to betray him, and which doors would open when he walked through them. But tonight, none of that mattered. There was one woman he couldn't find. One woman whose last name he didn't know. One woman who had walked out of his life before sunrise without leaving a message, a number, or an explanation. Sir, his right-hand man, Marcus Reed, finally said, "We're narrowing it down." Adrian's jaw tightened. "You have 12 hours. Marcus nodded and left with the others. The heavy doors closed. Silence returned. Adrian looked down at the small silver charm resting beside his phone. She had left it behind. He had picked it up that morning, expecting to return it the next time he saw her. He hadn't expected the strange feeling that came with holding it. He hadn't expected to keep it. He certainly hadn't expected to spend the entire day thinking about the woman who had made him forget, for a few hours, that he was supposed to be the most controlled man in the city. Her name was Hannah Brooks. He would learn that later. For now, she was simply the woman who had looked at him without fear. The woman who had laughed when he accidentally ordered the wrong coffee. The woman who had told him he looked exhausted, as if he were an ordinary man instead of Adrian Cole. That was what bothered him most. She hadn't asked what he did. She hadn't cared about his car, his watch, or the men who waited outside every room. She had simply talked to him, and Adrian had let her. 3 miles away, Hannah was standing behind the counter of a small neighborhood bakery, tying her apron before the morning rush. She had no idea that the most powerful man she had ever met was searching the city for her. She had no idea that her quiet exit had become the only mystery Adrian Cole couldn't solve. She only knew that the night before had felt strangely important, and that she had decided it was better left in the past. She turned on the lights. The bakery filled with the warm smell of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls. Outside, a black SUV slowed at the corner. Hannah glanced toward the window, then looked away. She didn't recognize the man inside. But Adrian did. He had finally found the first photograph of her. And for the first time that night, the mafia boss smiled. "There you are. You were looking for me?" Hannah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She had no idea the man standing outside the bakery had been sent by Adrian Cole. Marcus Reed lowered his phone and watched her through the rain-streaked window for another moment before stepping away from the curb. He had found her. Now he had to tell Adrian. Across the city, Adrian was still standing beside the window when his phone finally rang. "We found her," Marcus said. Adrian closed his eyes for 1 second. 1 second was all it took for the memory of the previous night to return. The quiet restaurant. The soft music. The woman sitting across from him with a cup of coffee between her hands. Hannah had known nothing about his world. She had simply looked at him and asked, "Why do you always look like you are waiting for something terrible to happen?" No one had ever spoken to him that way. Adrian had almost laughed. Instead, he had told her, "Maybe I am." She had smiled. "Then maybe you should stop waiting." Those words had followed him long after they said goodnight. Now Marcus was giving him an address. A small bakery on West 43rd Street. Adrian looked at the silver charm beside his phone. "Do not approach her," he said. Marcus paused. "You want me to bring her to you?" "No," Adrian's voice softened. "I will go myself." 20 minutes later, a black SUV stopped outside the bakery. Hannah was helping an elderly customer carry a box of pastries when she noticed the vehicle through the glass. Something about it made her pause. The door opened. Adrian stepped onto the sidewalk. Dark coat, perfectly pressed shirt, calm expression. But this time, there was no crowded room around him. No expensive restaurant. No distance between them. Hannah's fingers tightened around the cardboard box. She knew that face. She knew those eyes. Her heart skipped. "It is you," she whispered. Adrian walked toward the door, but stopped before entering. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Hannah set the box down. "Why are you here?" she asked. Adrian studied her face. He had spent the entire day imagining this moment. He had imagined anger, questions, even an apology. But now that she was standing in front of him, none of those words seemed right. "You left," he finally said. Hannah blinked. "I thought that was what you wanted." He frowned. "Why would you think that?" She gave a small, embarrassed laugh. Because you did not ask me to stay. The words landed harder than he expected. Adrian had always believed people understood what he wanted without being told. He had built his entire life around that assumption. But Hannah was different. She did not know his rules. She did not understand his reputation. She only understood what he had actually said. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. I wanted to see you again. Hannah's expression softened, but only slightly. Then you should have said that. For once, Adrian Cole had no answer. And Hannah had no idea that the man standing in front of her had spent the last 12 hours turning an entire city upside down just to hear her say those 6 words. Hannah held his gaze, unsure whether to trust what she had just heard. You came all the way here just to tell me that. Adrian nodded. Yes. The bakery suddenly felt too small for the silence between them. Behind Hannah, the ovens hummed softly, and the smell of cinnamon and fresh coffee filled the air. It was an ordinary morning. Adrian was anything but ordinary. Hannah folded her arms. You could have called. Adrian glanced toward the counter. I did not have your number. That seems like a problem you could have solved. A faint smile touched his face. I tried. Hannah studied him. There was something different about Adrian today. Last night, he had seemed distant and almost impossible to read. This morning, standing in her bakery, he looked tired. Human. She pointed toward an empty table near the window. Sit down. Adrian raised an eyebrow. You are giving me an order? For the next 5 minutes, yes. He sat. Hannah poured him coffee and placed the cup in front of him. Black, she asked. How did you know? You told me last night. Adrian looked at the coffee, then back at her. You remembered. I remember people. That answer stayed with him. Adrian wrapped both hands around the warm cup. For years, people had remembered his name because they feared what it represented. Hannah remembered small things. His coffee, his tired eyes, the way he avoided talking about himself. She remembered him, not Adrian Cole, the name that opened doors across Manhattan. I owe you an explanation, he said. Hannah sat across from him. I am listening. Adrian hesitated. He could tell her everything. He could tell her about his family, his business, the people who depended on him, and the responsibilities that followed him everywhere. Instead, he said the simplest truth. My life is complicated. Hannah gave a quiet laugh. That is not exactly an explanation. It is the honest version. She looked down at her hands. Then let me be honest too. Last night meant something to me, but I did not know what it meant to you. When I woke up and you were still asleep, I thought leaving was the respectful thing to do. Adrian's expression changed. You did not need permission to stay. I know. She looked back at him. But I needed a reason. He had no answer. That was the problem. Adrian had spent his entire life believing control could solve everything. Yet Hannah was asking for something he could not command. Trust. He leaned back slowly. I was angry when I could not find you. Why? Because I thought you had left because of me. Hannah's eyes softened. Maybe I left because I was afraid of what meeting you again might mean. Adrian looked toward the rain-covered window. For the first time, he understood that finding Hannah had been the easy part. The difficult part would be convincing her that he was worth staying for. Then her phone rang. Hannah glanced at the screen and smiled. Adrian. Noticed the name immediately. Someone else had a place in her ordinary life. And for reasons he did not yet understand, that small smile made his chest tighten. The name on Hannah's phone was Emily, her best friend. Adrian looked away before Hannah could notice how closely he had been watching the screen. Everything okay? He asked. Yes. She wants to know if I am working Saturday. Hannah smiled as she typed a quick reply. Adrian took another sip of coffee, but his attention had shifted. He was suddenly aware of how little he knew about her life. She had friends, a job she cared about, customers who knew her by name, a small apartment somewhere across Manhattan, a world that existed completely outside his. You should go, he said. Hannah looked up. Go where? Wherever you were planning to go. You do not even know what I was planning. Exactly. She smiled. You are surprisingly observant for someone who just admitted he knows almost nothing about me. Adrian almost smiled back. Almost. Then the bakery door opened, and a familiar voice called Hannah's name. Hannah, I brought the paperwork. A tall woman in her early 30s walked inside carrying a blue folder. She noticed Adrian and stopped. Oh, sorry. I did not realize you had company. Emily, this is Adrian. Hannah paused. Adrian, this is Emily Carter. Emily looked from Hannah to him, then back to Hannah. Something about her expression made Adrian realize she already knew there was a story here. Nice to meet you, Emily said carefully. Likewise. Adrian stood. He was preparing to leave when Hannah said, Wait. He looked at her. You said you wanted to see me again. I did. Then do not disappear after 10 minutes. Adrian studied her face. Are you asking me to stay? I am asking you to finish your coffee. That small distinction mattered. He sat again. Emily watched them with a knowing smile before walking toward the back office. Hannah lowered her voice. There is something else you should know. Adrian waited. I am not interested in being someone you visit when you are bored. His expression became serious. I am not bored. Then what are you? He looked at her for several seconds. Confused. Hannah laughed softly. That makes two of us. For the first time that morning, the tension between them eased. But Adrian's phone began vibrating on the table. Once. Twice. 3 times. He ignored it. On the 4th call, he answered. Marcus's voice came through quietly. We have a situation. Adrian's expression changed. Hannah noticed immediately. Is something wrong? He stood. I need to go. Of course. He hesitated. Then he looked at her. I will come back. Hannah crossed her arms. You cannot promise that. Why? Because you still have not told me who you really are. Adrian went still. She had asked the question he had been avoiding. Outside, rain tapped against the windows. Inside, Hannah waited. Adrian could walk away and keep his secrets, or tell her the truth and risk changing everything. He chose neither. Not yet. He simply reached into his coat, placed a business card on the table, and said, If you ever need me, call that number. Hannah picked it up after he left. There was no company logo, no address, just one name and one phone number. Adrian Cole. She stared at it for a long moment. Then Emily stepped out of the office, saw the card in her hand, and quietly asked, Hannah, do you know who that man is? Hannah looked toward the door. No, Emily's face turned serious. Then you should find out before you let him back into your life. By the time Adrian returned to his office, the rain had stopped, but the gray sky over Manhattan still looked heavy. He stood beside the window with Marcus across from him, listening without saying a word. She knows your name, Marcus said. Not what you do. Adrian turned slowly. And she does not need to know yet. Marcus hesitated. That may not be your choice for long. Adrian looked down at the city. What does that mean? People are asking questions. Someone noticed you were searching for her. They know she matters to you. Adrian's expression hardened, but his voice remained calm. Then they will stop asking. Marcus nodded, but he knew Adrian was thinking about something else. Hannah, the woman who had looked him directly in the eyes and told him that he could not make promises he was not prepared to keep. No one spoke to Adrian that way. No one except her. Across Manhattan, Hannah was closing the bakery when Emily walked in carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. You need to tell me what is going on, Emily said. Hannah sighed. I do not know what is going on. That man came here in a black SUV, gave you a private number, and left without telling you what he does. That is not normal. Hannah placed the last tray of pastries on the counter. I know. Then why are you still thinking about him? Hannah stopped. The question was too accurate. She looked toward the window, remembering Adrian sitting at the small table that morning. He had seemed powerful, but strangely uncertain. Because when he looks at me, I do not feel invisible, she said quietly. Emily softened. Hannah, being seen is important. But being safe matters too. Hannah nodded. She knew Emily was right. That night, after locking the bakery, Hannah walked home beneath the glow of streetlights. Her apartment was only 6 blocks away. She liked the walk because it gave her time to clear her head. Halfway there, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she answered. Hello. Silence. Who is this? A man's voice finally spoke. You should be careful about who you trust. The call ended. Hannah stopped walking. Her heart began beating faster. She looked around, but the sidewalk was quiet. No one approached her. Nothing happened. Yet the warning stayed with her. She hurried home and locked the door behind her. 10 minutes later, there was a knock. Hannah froze. Another knock followed. Then Adrian's voice came through the door. Hannah, it is me. She opened it only a few inches. What are you doing here? Adrian looked at her carefully. I heard about the call. Her eyes widened. How did you know? He did not answer immediately. That silence told her more than any explanation could have. Hannah stepped back. You have been watching me. Adrian shook his head. I have been making sure you are safe. That is not the same thing. He lowered his voice. You are right. Hannah studied him through the narrow opening. Then tell me the truth. Adrian looked at the floor for a moment, then back at her. My name is Adrian Cole. I am not a businessman in the ordinary sense. Hannah waited. Then what are you? Adrian's answer was quiet. I am a man with a complicated life, and now that life has found you. Hannah slowly closed the door, leaving him standing in the hallway. She did not know whether she was afraid of Adrian or afraid of how much she wanted to believe him. Inside, she looked at the silver charm she had kept since that night. For the first time, she wondered if she had not walked into Adrian Cole's world by accident. Maybe his world had been searching for her long before he ever knew her name. The next morning, Hannah arrived at the bakery before sunrise, but she barely noticed the familiar warmth or the smell of fresh bread. Adrian's words kept returning to her. My life has found you. She did not know what they meant, and she was not sure she wanted to find out. At 7:30, Emily arrived with coffee and immediately noticed the look on Hannah's face. You did not sleep, she said. Hannah shook her head. Not much. She told Emily about the call, then about Adrian standing outside her apartment. Emily listened without interrupting. And he admitted he has a complicated life? She asked. Yes. That is still not an explanation. I know. Hannah looked toward the bakery window. But he did not pressure me. He left when I asked him to. Emily studied her carefully. That matters. Hannah nodded. It does. Across town, Adrian was having a very different morning. He had spent most of the night reviewing everything he knew about Hannah, and the list was surprisingly small. 28 years old. Worked at the bakery. Lived alone. Had a close friend named Emily. Volunteered twice a month at a community food pantry. Loved old movies. Took her coffee with a little cream. He stopped reading and stared at the screen. He had never cared about details like this before. He had always collected information because information created control. With Hannah, the details felt different. They felt personal. Marcus entered the room. The bakery owner called. Adrian looked up. What about? He wants to know why 3 people. Asked about the place yesterday. Adrian's expression changed. Tell him they were routine questions and that no one will bother his business again. Marcus nodded. There is something else. Adrian waited. Hannah's landlord received an offer for her apartment. Someone tried to buy the building. Adrian stood immediately. Who? We do not know yet. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Adrian reached for his coat. Cancel the offer. Already done. Adrian paused. Good. He left the office and drove to the bakery. He did not go inside. He simply stood across the street and watched Hannah through the window as she helped a customer choose a birthday cake. She laughed at something the customer said. Adrian smiled before he realized it. Then Hannah looked up and saw him. Their eyes met through the glass. She stepped outside. Are you following me again? She asked. Adrian shook his head. No. I wanted to make sure you were all right. You could have called. I could have. She crossed her arms. Why did you not? Adrian looked at her. Because I wanted to see you. Hannah's expression softened. You are making this very difficult. I know. She looked down at the sidewalk, then back at him. I do not want your money. I do not want special treatment. I just want to know that when you say something, you mean it. Adrian nodded slowly. Then I will prove it. Hannah studied him for a moment. How? He glanced at the bakery. By leaving you alone today. She smiled despite herself. That might be the first sensible thing you have said. Adrian turned toward his car, then stopped. Hannah. She looked back. You were right last night. I cannot protect you by controlling your life. He took a breath. But if someone is trying to interfere with it, I will make sure they stop. Hannah watched him walk away. She did not know whether to trust him yet. But for the first time, she believed he might be learning how to earn that trust instead of demanding it. By Friday afternoon, Hannah had almost convinced herself that Adrian Cole was becoming a distant memory. Almost. Then she noticed the black sedan parked across from the bakery again. She watched it for a few seconds before Marcus stepped out and crossed the street. I am not here to bother you, he said. Mr. Cole asked me to give you this. He handed her a small envelope. Hannah opened it carefully. Inside was a simple key and a handwritten note from Adrian. You should have a place where you feel safe. Nothing more. No conditions. Hannah stared at the words. She looked at Marcus. What is the key for? A private office 2 blocks from here. It belongs to Adrian. Why would I need that? You do not. That is why he gave it to you. Marcus walked away before she could ask another question. Hannah returned inside and slipped the key into her pocket. She wanted to dismiss the gesture, but something about it stayed with her. Adrian had promised not to control her life. and this time he seemed to be keeping his word. That evening, she visited the office. It was nothing like the places she had imagined Adrian would own. It was quiet, bright, and surprisingly simple. There were bookshelves along one wall, a small kitchen, and a large window overlooking the Hudson River. On the desk was another note. Use it if you need somewhere to think. Hannah smiled. You really are terrible at saying things directly, she whispered. Her phone rang. Adrian. She answered. You knew I would come here. I hoped you would. Why? Because I wanted you to have a choice. Hannah looked around the room. This is not what I expected from you. What did you expect? Something colder. Adrian laughed softly. It was the first time she had heard him laugh without restraint. I am trying something new. What? Being honest. There was a pause. Then Adrian said, there is something you need to know. Hannah's smile disappeared. What? The person asking questions about you is connected to my business. Her stomach tightened. So I really am in danger because of you. You are being noticed because of me, Adrian said. And I am sorry. Hannah sat down. What are you going to do? Nothing you do not want me to do. She closed her eyes. That answer should have comforted her. Instead, it made her realize how serious things had become. Adrian, I cannot become part of your world. His voice was quiet. I know. Then why are you still here? Another pause. Because I do not know how to walk away from you. Hannah opened her eyes. The honesty in his voice unsettled her more than any grand promise could have. Before she could answer, someone knocked on the office door. She froze. Adrian heard it through the phone. Are you alone? Yes. Another knock. Hannah looked toward the entrance. A folded piece of paper had been pushed underneath the door. She picked it up with trembling fingers. There was only one sentence written on it. You should not trust Adrian Cole. Hannah stared at the words. Then she looked at the phone still pressed to her ear. Adrian, she whispered. Someone just left me a message. His voice became very calm. Read it to me. Read it again, Adrian said quietly. Hannah looked at the note in her hand. It says I should not trust you. For several seconds, there was only silence between them. Then Adrian asked, do you recognize the handwriting? No. Did anyone know you were coming here? Hannah thought about it. Only you, Marcus, and Emily. Adrian's voice remained calm. Then we start there. Hannah frowned. You said you would not control my life. I am not trying to control you. I am trying to understand what is happening. She looked at the note again. Maybe they are telling me the truth. Adrian did not argue. Maybe. That answer surprised her. You are not going to tell me they are lying? I do not know yet. Hannah sat down slowly. That is the first time you have admitted you do not know something. A quiet breath escaped him. I am learning. The words softened something inside her. She placed the note on the desk. Then tell me everything you can. Adrian hesitated. He knew this conversation had been coming. He just had not expected it to happen in a quiet office overlooking the Hudson River. My family has been involved in private business for decades, he began. Some of those businesses are legitimate. Others exist in places where rules are complicated. Hannah listened without interrupting. And you inherited all of it. Most of it. Do you want it? Adrian looked toward the window. I wanted control. I thought that was the same thing. Hannah studied him. And now? Now I am not sure. Her expression softened. Adrian continued. When I met you, I was not looking for anyone. I was not searching for a relationship. I was simply tired. Hannah smiled faintly. You looked tired. You noticed. I notice people. Adrian smiled. I know. For a moment, the room felt peaceful again. Then Hannah's phone buzzed. A message from Emily. We need to talk. Hannah opened it. Another message appeared immediately. Do not tell Adrian. Hannah's face changed. Adrian noticed. What happened? Hannah turned the phone toward him. He read the message without touching it. Call her, he said. Hannah did. Emily answered after one ring. Hannah, where are you? At Adrian's office. Silence. Why are you there? Because someone left me a note telling me not to trust him. Emily exhaled slowly. Then you need to listen. Hannah's eyes widened. Why? Emily's voice became quieter. Because I know something about Adrian that he has not told you. Adrian stood perfectly still. Hannah looked at him. What do you know? Emily paused. The night you met him, he was already looking for someone. Hannah felt her heart sink. Who? A woman who had taken something from his family. Hannah stared at Adrian. Was it me? Emily did not answer immediately. Then she said, I do not know. But Hannah, there is one thing I do know. Adrian Cole did not find you by accident. The call ended. Hannah slowly lowered the phone. Adrian looked at her. and for the first time since they met, she saw something she had never seen in his eyes before. Fear. Not fear for himself. Fear that she had finally learned the truth. "Adrian, what did I take from your family?" Hannah asked. He did not answer immediately. He walked to the window and stared at the lights across the Hudson River. For the first time, Hannah saw the weight he carried without the usual calm expression hiding it. "A silver charm," he finally said. Hannah looked down at the small charm she had kept since the night they met. Her breath caught. "This?" Adrian nodded. "That charm belonged to my mother." Hannah's fingers tightened around it. "I found it years ago," she said, "at a community event. Someone dropped it, and I kept it because I thought it was beautiful. I never knew where it came from." Adrian turned toward her. "I did not know you had it until that night." Hannah stared at him. Suddenly, every unanswered question seemed connected. The search, the urgency, the strange intensity in his eyes when he first saw her. "So you were looking for this," she whispered. Adrian shook his head. "At first, yes. And then..." He looked directly at her. "Then I was looking for you." Hannah felt tears gather in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You should have told me. I was afraid." She almost laughed. "You? Afraid? Of losing the only person who had no reason to care about my name?" The room became quiet again. Hannah looked at the charm. Why was it so important? Adrian sat down across from her. "My mother gave it to my father before she died. He spent years believing it was lost. I promised him I would find it." Hannah listened. "And when you saw it with me, I thought fate had finally answered a question I had carried for years." She lowered her gaze. "But I was never supposed to be part of that story." "No," Adrian said softly. "You were not." He paused. "You became part of it because I could not stop caring about you." Hannah looked up. There was no command in his voice. No expectation. Just honesty. She slowly placed the charm on the table between them. "Then take it." Adrian looked at it, but did not touch it. "I do not want it if keeping it means losing you." Her eyes widened. "You waited years for this." "I know. And now you are willing to let it go?" Adrian nodded. "Some things matter because of what they mean. You matter because of who you are." Hannah closed her eyes for a moment. The fear she had carried since that first phone call began to loosen. She finally understood the truth. Adrian had not searched the city because he wanted to punish her. He had searched because she had unknowingly carried a piece of his past into his present. But somewhere along the way, the reason had changed. The charm had brought them together. Trust had kept them there. Hannah reached across the table and pushed the charm back toward him. "Then keep it." Adrian looked at her. "Why?" "Because it belongs to your family." She took a breath. "But if you want me in your life, you do not get to decide for me. I decide to." A quiet smile appeared on Adrian's face. "I know." Hannah smiled back. Outside, Manhattan continued moving beneath the evening lights. The city that had once felt enormous suddenly seemed very small. Adrian had spent years believing power meant controlling every outcome. Hannah had taught him something far harder. Sometimes love meant giving another person the freedom to choose you. And when Adrian reached for her hand, he did not pull her closer. He simply waited. Hannah was the one who closed the distance. For the first time, neither of them was running, and neither of them needed to.